Is Jaylon Johnson seeking another contract extension for the Chicago Bears after seeing what cornerbacks are going for around the league? We're going to talk a little bit about that. And does Jaylon Johnson have a leg to stand on in regards to his desire for another contract? If that's truly what he wants, we're going to talk a little bit about that. The Chicago Bears also already have a guy on the cut list that we're going to talk about. And Ben Johnson clearly sets the expectations and the big plans that he has for the rookies. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go to get into this content today, y'all. And Jaylon Johnson talking, man. Jaylon Johnson, he signed a 4-year, $110 million contract extension back in March of 2024, which makes him one of the most affordable corners in the league when you look at the level of production that he's able to give. But in a recent episode of The Rich Eisen Show, Jaylon Johnson talked a little bit about that situation. He said this: "Just seeing a lot of the other corners getting paid, I almost feel like we might have another discussion coming up here soon. The market is moving. The market is moving. As long as I just keep being myself, keep playing at a high level, definitely going to have to be some more conversations coming up soon. And I really really keep it long term. So I'm looking forward to that." Now, this has already been met with some reactions from Bears fans. You know, I've seen it in the comment section, Bears fans saying things like, well, Jaylon, you signed your contract. Don't worry about that. Go out there and play football. Well, unfortunately, and not even unfortunately, that's what the league allows for. The NFL is not like the NBA, for example. When you sign your contract, you're not locked in to that contract. You're just not. And that's the nature of how the NFL works. You're not locked into that contract. You can go out there and you can get an extension. And he has the right to do that that's what the CBA allows for. But that is the nature of what the CBA allows. And I'm not mad at that, right? Like, I think that's what is allowable in the NFL. You can renegotiate contracts and look at market value, especially if you feel like you're getting underpaid. So I'm not mad at that. Right now, if Jaylon Johnson was seeking some contract that is like, oh, I need to be the highest paid corner in the league, but it doesn't seem like that's where he's coming from either. I take those comments as basically what it is. I'm looking at the market. I'm looking at how the market has changed. And I signed a deal that was reasonable even when I signed that contract. And now that it seems like the market is dictating and changing, yeah, we may have to renegotiate that contract. Guess what? He's not holding out. He's not saying, hey, I'm not playing in the 2025 season until we get this deal done. No. So that's not a toxic thing. And I think, it's not that we don't live in the shut up and play era, right? So I'm not going to be somebody that's mad at a player even, a little over a year after signing their contract extension, wants to renegotiate after having seen the market's done. And he also put it on himself, as long as I keep playing at a high level, right? So it's not this entitlement that some people have now taken it and made it to be, where it's like, oh no, I need more money. It seems like, hey, as long as my level of play is up there with these players that are getting paid more, why should I not want to renegotiate my contract? Why should I not want to get the most money if I'm providing that value to this team? And I don't think that that's a bad thing when it comes down to, yes, 2024 was a frustrating season, but Jaylon Johnson was one of the players that remained one of the better cornerbacks in the league, right? 3 takeaways over the course of last season. Two interceptions, 1 forced fumble, 8 pass breaks up, a career high in tackles at 53, and career high in tackles for a loss in 17 games, and went to his 2nd straight Pro Bowl. We know that the Bears defense took a slide, and maybe him and his agents realized this is not the time to try to renegotiate a contract where the Bears are trying to shift everything. We got a new defensive coordinator here in Dennis Allen. He's going to probably use Jaylon Johnson one of the best ways he's been used his entire career. And then we're going to, once this team gets to, and hopefully we have a winning season, now let's take care of the business that we need to take care of. But he seems to be focusing on football right now, and I can respect that. So, the reactions from some fans, and I do think it's a vocal minority, right, as far as in the Bears community, but it is what it is. Like, this is the nature of NFL football. Jaylon Johnson isn't going to be the only player that wants to negotiate his contract after seeing how the market has changed. Now, luckily, throughout the Bears and under Ryan Poles, we haven't had a lot of that here. But, as you become a winning team, and hopefully that's what the Bears are doing this season, and of course that is their aim to do that, you're going to get more of that. And that just comes by the nature of winning, and that comes by the nature of having players that are playing well. And so, we'll see what happens here. If Jaylon Johnson wants to negotiate his contract, and the thing is, cool, but let's add some more years on that on top of that, right? Let's get you, if we're going to pay you more money, if you want more money, let's lock in more years. Let's get this done so that way we don't have to do this again in 2 or 3 years, right? So I think that's the thing that you have to. But I also understand the people who have some concerns on if this turns into a slippery slope as the market then changes again. Are you going to want to negotiate 2 more years into the new extension? I can understand that a little bit. The thing that I can't vibe with, and I personally can't get with, is the people that act like this is like Jaylon Johnson doing something that's horrible as a player or a member of the franchise to want to renegotiate his contract on a contract that is, we all know, is extremely favorable to the team. It's ridiculously favorable to who the Chicago Bears are. So, yeah, come on, man. Like, I'm not mad at Jaylon Johnson for wanting to renegotiate. Again, it's up to Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears then to come up with that value. What makes sense? It's up to the Bears to then look at how does that impact their long-term books and things like that on what they want to do. That's up to the Bears. It's up to Ryan Poles, Ian Cunningham to figure it out by keeping a guy that's extremely talented on this team. And I still remember, what was that? A couple of years ago at this point, the people were like, oh, they should let Jaylon Johnson walk. Jaylon Johnson isn't one of the best corners in the league because he didn't get interceptions, right? I'm just glad that the conversation around him has turned a little bit now to where people understand the value that Jaylon Johnson does bring and offer to the Chicago Bears. Now we just got to see if that is going to indicate and get him a new contract. And it could very well. And if it is, I'm not mad. If he's performing, and that's something with everybody on the team, it's up to Ryan Poles to figure out how to keep everybody or how to replace talent. But if players are performing, I can't never be mad at them wanting more money. I can't ever be mad at them looking at what's going on around the league and being smart. We had too many instances in sports history where players just weren't smart and got bad deals that ended up being bad for their career and ended up just being bad for them not providing security. I can never be mad at a player who wants security for them, their family, and they are performing. That is the overarching thing here. If you are performing on the football field, yes, you have the right to negotiate. You have the right to ask for those things. Now it's up to Ryan Poles and the front office to figure it out. And if Jaylon Johnson wants to renegotiate, cool, so be it. Let's see what Ryan Poles and the team comes up with. You guys can let me know on that down below. Well, Jaylon Johnson was one of the players that was listed on the physically inactive, the non-football injury inactive list. But Case Keenum has already come off of that. So, he was only on it for a day or so. So it is what it is when it comes down to that. And we talked about that a little bit on yesterday's episode with me, Bobby, and C-Dub. It does seem like that was maybe a thing where the Bears were extending this to some players, maybe to get them some more time to report. Maybe they had some time with their family, things like that. Veterans, I do think Ian Willer's the one legitimate one on there. But we shall see what's going to happen. Overall, I don't think it's anything to worry about. I didn't think it was anything to worry about when it happened. But Case Keenum already back off that inactive list, and now he gets to get ready to hold that clipboard for Caleb Williams because the hope is that we're not going to see him a lot. But for what it's worth, Case Keenum is in a position battle of himself. He is in a position battle for the backup quarterback role, the quarterback 2 role. And between him and Tyson Bagent, who comes away with that is going to be the player that's in Caleb Williams' ear. It's going to be the player that helps Caleb Williams. Tyson Bagent has already talked about that, how in Caleb's rookie year, he really did help Caleb Williams with quite a few things, to be 100% honest. So, the backup quarterback role is one that it's easy to forget because hopefully you don't see him on the field a lot, but it's one that actually is quite important. In Case Keenum to play a mentor for Caleb Williams, is not necessarily a bad thing, but he's doing a battle with Tyson Bagent for that backup role. And, we'll end up seeing it. The Bears even going to carry 3 quarterbacks on this roster. We'll see. So far that we know is because Case Keenum has taken snaps with the second offense. So it may suggest that he has the upper hand on Tyson Bagent. I would normally say that maybe that's just because Case Keenum is new, but with the whole new coaching staff, they got to get their eyes on everyone, right? So, we'll see what happens with that. But Case Keenum, for what it's worth, he's back active, leading in the training camp, and football is right around the corner. So now players that remain on the inactive list are Jaylon Johnson, Jahadae Walker, and running back Ian Willer. And we'll see if they're off that by Wednesday, which is the first practice goes down on Wednesday. I can't wait to get some actual football talk in here. So we'll see what that ends up shaking out for this Bears team. But it seems like things are going in that direction. We just got to see how they're going to work out for the respective side. So there you go on that one. But with that said, there's already a player that seems like he's going to be on the outside looking in and maybe one of the first actual cuts by the Chicago Bears when it comes down to it. And this isn't somebody that, it's not a big name or anything like that. Miles Boykin has already been mentioned as a player that is probably going to be on the way out here with the Chicago Bears, that he's not going to make it through training camp. He may not even make it through the first week of training camp. He was with the New York Giants and the Seattle Seahawks practice squads last year. The Bears signed him in April on a veteran minimum 1-year deal. He was a third-round pick in 2019 for what that's worth, where he spent 3 seasons with the Baltimore Ravens. He played with the Pittsburgh Steelers as well for 2 seasons also. But this is not a guy that really shapes up to really impact things. 25 career games between the Steelers and the Ravens. He caught 38 passes for 498 yards. And he scored 7 touchdowns over that time. All 7 of that was with the Ravens, who he spent 2 seasons with. And not to say that Boykins isn't a solid or wide receiver. He is. But when you look at the Bears wide receiver room, when you have Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, Luther Burden, Olamide Zaccheaus, Devin Duvernay, Tyler Scott, that's 6 names right there, right? And so it's always going to be a uphill battle for Boykins Boykin to make this roster. And so it seems like right now, it seems like he's a body right now to fill out the roster in training camp a little bit. But at the end of that day of that, he's probably not going to play a lot of snaps. We're probably not even going to see him make a preseason game. He's already a guy that has already been marked as somebody who's not going to make it very far in training camp. So we'll see how that goes. But speaking of training camp, Ben Johnson seems to have a lot of plans for the rookies, right? Ben Johnson recently talked about Luther Burden and the thoughts there, and what he has to play multiple roles for the Bears. And Ben Johnson said this: though he plays wide receiver, he has the capability to handle multiple positions. He can line up at running back, in the slot, on the outside, and just about anywhere. Missouri used him in various fashions with jet sweeps, reverses, handoffs, and wildcats, etc. All he needs is a coach with creativity to unlock his full potential. Everyone knows there are a few offensive minds and scientists with the reputation of Ben Johnson. That comes from the article there. So Luther Burden, who we've talked a lot about being the perfect slot receiver for the Chicago Bears team, it seems like Ben Johnson is a guy that already is looking at how he can use Luther Burden in multiple situations and areas. And again, shout out to my boy Darius. Me and Darius just have fun with each other. Darius is concerned about things turning into gimmicks, and I think that's a fair concern to have, right? But I think, again, the way that I look at it with Ben Johnson, because I don't look at him as a gimmick coach. I look at him as a coach that looks to explore mismatches. And so, we already saw it last year under Shane Waldron. We used DJ Moore in some of those areas. So I don't think that Ben Johnson is going to let it turn into a gimmick, but I do think Ben Johnson is going to look at specific scenarios, specific plays, specific situations in which it makes sense to use Luther Burden in the slot, on the outside, on a jet sweep, as a running back. Luther Burden has that, and we talked before about positionless players. Now, I don't know how much Luther Burden shapes up to be a positionless player over the course of his NFL career, but I do think that he is somebody that, has that potential to be a little bit of that. Again, you don't want to do it overboard, right? I think, what he's going to do as a route runner, what he's going to do as a traditional wide receiver, that's already going to make him dangerous enough for the Chicago Bears offense. You don't need to do a whole lot outside of that to make Luther Burden a dangerous weapon for this team. I want to be clear there. But if you have those situations where you can legitimately use him and it makes sense to keep defenses on their heels and to get the most, what is the thing that we've talked so much about that Ben Johnson wants to do with this team? Find a way to put the ball in the hands of your playmakers. However that means you get the ball in their hands, using a guy like Luther Burden in those areas could be supremely big for the Chicago Bears. And I, for one, am glad to hear that there's that. We talked about this. The Bears have some of the most creative offensive minds in the game of football on their roster. Declan Doyle, Ben Johnson, Eric Bieniemy, just those 3 names alone are names that are so creative offensively in what they can do and they can draw up. You now factor in a guy like Luther Burden, who has right now the potential's out the wazoo. You can use Luther Burden, and because of the wide receiver room that you have with Olamide, that also can be as a slot, with Rome Odunze, with DJ Moore, it frees you up sometimes to think about creative ways to get Luther Burden out on the football field. Now, I want to see him established as a wide receiver first, right? And let's establish our offense first. Let's establish some of those things. But then once you do that, there's no harm in getting creative in how you use your personnel. Ben Johnson's already basically revolutionized the 12-man personnel, right? And so you're going to see him continue to add on to that with the talent that we have here. The Bears have so much offensive talent on paper. right? And so we got to see how that's going to come out in reality. And the best way to do that sometimes is to get creative in how you use your players. And that's the thing that we're all waiting to see how Ben Johnson does. Ben Johnson is going to look at the talent that we have here. And I'm sure as a head coach, as a creative offensive mind, he is absolutely licking his chops at what this team could turn into being. Again, I say could be because we don't know for sure yet. And we're trying to see what that's going to look like. But overall, I think that Luther Burden is a guy, keep your eyes on, because you may see him all up and down the field for the Chicago Bears. You may see him in so many different areas and scenarios that we start thinking like, hey, is Luther Burden low-key featured in this offense? But he's going to have to show and prove. And he's already behind the 8 ball some with his injury and thing like that. I'm glad the contract situation is done. But Ben Johnson, for what it's worth, has already talked about the time that Luther Burden has missed and how important that has been to him learning the offense, building that second hand with Caleb Williams, getting that chemistry down with him in the wide receiver core. Ben Johnson has already talked a little bit about his concerns over how much Luther Burden is missed. So best believe that's there. Now we're going to see how that overcomes that, of course, over time. But it's there, especially when your head coach talks about it. It means that it's something he is really worried about. But we'll see how much we can overcome that. But Luther Burden, hearing that Luther Burden could actually be a positionless player under Ben Johnson ain't really a big surprise to me. And let's see how Ben Johnson's going to use it. But with that said, it is Monday. I use Monday as a little bit of an overflow for the voicemail bag. We got one voicemail we did not get to last week. This one's from Darius.
What's going on, guys? Darius from Dallas, man. I just wanted to call and give a take on the contract situation. Because not only you guys, y'all were first to talk about it, but I'm starting to hear other people talk about it a little bit more around Chicago media. I'm not worried about it in the sense of, are we going to get it done? I know Poles will get it done with those second round guys, but and this might be a little bit of a old school get off my lawn take, but I don't know, man. I just feel like if you can't, I get that business is business and you got to take care of your money. I get that. But I don't believe that rookies should be walking through the door asking for guaranteed money. I just don't. I'm sorry, bro. That's like, if that was the case, a guy like Trey Lance would have ended up getting paid, $20 million guaranteed or some wild shit. Like, I want the players to get their money, which is why I wanted all the NIL stuff to work out. But now I worry, in the future, is this going to lead to, just more entitled guys, just coming through the door? Because how I feel is if you got drafted by this organization and you can't get excited about it and you can't get to the point where you're like, look, I just want to be a part of this and get going. That's what I want my rookies to have the mentality of. I just want to come in. They got a new regime. Ben Johnson's here recreating the culture. I got an opportunity to step up and prove myself. Like Luther, you got the opportunity, bro. Like nobody's holding you back from being our number one option. If you get out there, same thing for Ruben Hippolyte and all those guys, man. So I know it's a little bit of a get off my lawn take, bro, but I'm not comfortable with second round picks battling with negotiations with them every year. Because, getting to play in the NFL is a privilege. It's not something that you're entitled to. And I feel like you should step through the door and prove yourself, before you start talking about guaranteed money, period. These guys make a lot of money compared to, us average human beings. So it's hard for us to sympathize with that. And maybe it's a little bit of that, but dude, you got an opportunity to be a part of something brand new, ground floor. This is a big opportunity to come in and play with the Bears this year. So, I don't like that mentality of, oh, I'm not going to go out there until my money's right. But let me know what y'all think. Text us up there now.
I love that you brought up the human element. Now, while we know that the second round guys have since been locked into new contracts, which is really good, I always say it, and I look at it as this. To me, when you have players now that go through NIL, you have players that are much more now aware of what it means, what contracts mean, what options are, what guaranteed money looks like. And because you have that now, that opens you up the door for so much. And I think that's just what you have to look at, is these players are more aware. And now you're going to see second round picks, because of the talent that's coming in, want more guaranteed money. And I'm not like the deals that we heard weren't unreasonable. Like we didn't hear one thing that was completely unreasonable in any of these deals that these second round guys got. So I'm glad that they got the business taken care of. I'm glad that they got it done, ahead of training camp. So well ahead of a few days before training camp officially starts and opens. And now we can just focus on what? The football of it all. That's the most important thing. Once you can focus on the football, that's the most important thing. So, while we got questions on everything, it's fine when it comes down to that. I think overall, like, it's nothing. As we saw it, the way that it shook out, it ended up being nothing to worry about. Much ado about nothing. They got them done. They got them locked in. Now they can go out and focus on competing for the starting roles for the rookies that are. And we have a number of them that are doing that. So we'll see what the future does hold there. But thank you for that voicemail, Darius. That's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following us at Chi Bear Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, chicagobearcentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you guys want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.